my God, please send someone to my house. Someone talk to my house. I think my daughter's dead. Oh, my God.
Hearing the terror in that mother's voice is just heartbreaking. She was the first witness called to the stand by the prosecution in this case. And the next witness is the babysitter's boyfriend. Let's go back to Florida now, together live.
Yes, sir.
At the time of her death. I'm showing you a photograph which has been previously admitted. So we know that we're talking about the same person. Exhibit 3, do you recognize that as Lisa Story?
Yes, I do.
May I publish that to the jury just by holding? Thank you. Before I ask you some questions about Lisa, let me ask about yourself. Do you work today still?
Part-time.
What type of part-time work do you do?
I'm a general contractor. I usually manage large construction projects, either for my own company or usually I'm here lately, the last few years, I've been doing a lot of customer rep work, you know, owners and investors.
What exactly do you do with construction projects?
We take them from preconception through conception, design elements, submittal to the different municipality entities, and start the construction process, oversee all the contracts, payments, quality control, and right through finality of the project.
What type of education or teachings have you had to do that type of work?
I attended Lees McRae University, or Lees McRae College and the University of Tennessee, studied structural engineering. Been in the construction industry since I was a child. My father was into it. That's how we made our living when I was a child, was through farming.
Do you hold any certificates or licenses in the state?
I'm a certified CGC in the state of Florida, Virginia, and in Tennessee. I hold licenses in 3 states, certified general.
That's what I was going to ask you. A CGC is a certified general contractor?
Yes, sir.
Very good. So were you doing that back in 1990 already?
Yes, sir.
It's been your whole career?
Yes, sir.
Career's changed a lot over time, the way we do things in
Greatly.
construction. Doing it still now with computers, I bet.
Yes, sir.
All digital and...
Some of it is, but it still gets back to just good old-fashioned hard work and paying attention.
All right, and before you began that career, were you in the military?
Yes, sir.
What branch?
Army.
What years?
69 through 75.
You served overseas?
Yes.
Where?
Southeast Asia.
Vietnam?
Yes.
I'm sorry, what station?
I'm sorry.
Overseas? Yes, where?
Southeast Asia.
I'm sorry, thank you.
Could you tell us when your relationship with Lisa Story began?
Yes, sir. It began the second Saturday in February of 1980.
Pretty about the date.
Absolutely.
Because?
I was visiting a friend, and he had a friend that came over to visit, and Lisa was with him. And we sat around and drank a couple of beers, and they said they were going bowling. And I don't know, I've just remembered dates and days. And
I want to show you what's been admitted as State's Exhibit 85. Can you see that from here?
Yes, sir.
Is that a photograph of you and Lisa Story?
Yes, sir, it is.
And is that in spring of '87 as it represents on the
Yes,
photo?
sir, it is. In March.
Okay. And what was the occasion that you and Miss Story were out that evening?
That was Roy Morgan's birthday party, and it was held at, I think it was called the Sheridan back then, and it was the high rise there at the Edison Bridge as you cross from Fort Myers into North Fort Myers. That was up in the penthouse. He had rented that for his birthday party.
So you have a good recollection of that evening as well.
Yes, sir.
Publish 85 just by holding that up, Your Honor.
Publish.
So, did you date Lisa Story continually from the time you met her till May 10th or May 9th of 1990?
Yes, sir. There was one time in '89 that her and I decided that we would separate for a while, which we did for about a month, and then we got back together. But other than that, I was, we dated pretty regular. Well, like every weekend.
Did you ever?
You know, I stayed, I didn't move in per se, but I was there all the time.
Where did you live in between January of 1990 and May of 1990?
I lived at 157 Crown Drive in Naples, Florida, in Palm River, North Naples.
Where was Lisa living before she moved in with Jan Cornell?
She was living with a radiologist that she worked with at the hospital. His name was Howard. I don't recall Howard's last name.
Where was that house?
It was off of Pine Ridge Road in North Cape Coral.
So if you guys were getting together, either you traveled to Cape Coral or she traveled to Naples, I assume.
Yes, sir.
Would she spend the night at your place in Naples sometimes?
Yes, sir.
Would you spend the night at her and Howard's place in Cape Coral at
Yes, sir.
times? What was Lisa like?
She was a very outgoing person, vivacious personality, very caring, compassionate, a lot of fun to be around. She was just a good old all-American girl, hard worker.
You know what type of work she did?
Yes, sir.
What was that?
She was a secretary for the fundraisers for hospitals.
Did she seem to enjoy that work?
Yes, sir, greatly.
Was she proud of the work she was doing?
Absolutely.
She helped them raise a lot of money for the hospital?
Yes, sir. She had just completed raising the money for the obstetrics wing at Cape Coral Hospital.
Wasn't there a fundraiser that she did just before she died?
Yes, sir.
Where was that held?
When she did the fundraising, she had an office there at the hospital, and she went around to the pillars of the community and everywhere else that she could find to, to solicit money. And she had events for them, and we had, after it was all completed and everything was, the building was CO'd, then we had a little thank you celebration for them, for the larger donors, and she was quite proud of all that. She set all that up, and she had a little golf tournament for them. And
Was that golf tournament in the days before she died?
yes, sir, it was on a Friday before she died.
What a great person she was. The jury hearing about Lisa Story, one of the victims in this case, along with little Robin Cornell, the 11-year-old girl she was babysitting. Stand by. We're going to go back to Florida in just a couple of minutes. We have to hit a break. We're at the bottom of the hour. Thank you for being with us here on Court TV Live. Welcome back to Court TV Live, your front row seat to justice. I'm Julie Grant. Thank you for being with us on this Wednesday. We're going live in Florida now for witness number 2 in the case against defendant Joseph Zeiler. He's accused of sexually assaulting and murdering 2 people back in 1990, an 11-year-old child and her babysitter. And this case went cold, but was cracked wide open, according to the state, because of DNA evidence. And on the stand is the man who was the boyfriend of the babysitter, talking about all of the great work that this woman did. Her name is Lisa Story, one of the 2 victims. Let's go back in together live.
Did you and Lisa ever speak about progressing your relationship?
Yes, sir, we did.
Was there ever talk of getting married?
Yes, sir.
How far did that go?
We had planned on getting married around her birthday in the middle of September.
Had you actually set a date?
Yes, sir, September the 15th.
When's your birthday?
May the 11th.
The day after she was found deceased, right?
Yes, sir.
Did you know that she had bought you a gift for your birthday?
No, sir, not at the time. I did not.
Did you learn about the gift afterwards?
Yes, sir.
Did you know that it was a watch that was engraved?
After when I learned about it, I was told that it was a watch and that it was engraved and what it said on the back.
Have you ever seen that watch since then?
No, sir.
Well, you never saw it at all. You just heard
No,
about
sir.
it, right?
I've seen illustrations of it. They ran, there were several billboards that were ran throughout the city advertising, if you've seen this watch, please call this number. And it showed the front of it and the back of it where it was engraved and what the engraving said.
You had indicated the last time you saw her would have been the Sunday before her death, right?
Yes, sir.
Did you speak to her between Sunday and when you found out she was murdered?
Yes, sir. We spoke every day, sometimes a couple of times a day.
1990, we didn't all have cell phones, did we?
No, sir. It was hard line. I had a cell phone in my truck.
How big was it back then, the cell phone?
Pretty good
One of
size.
those block things back then?
Yes, sir.
But when you spoke to her, you used the landlines, right?
Most of the time, sir. Yes.
So for Monday and Tuesday, did you speak to her on those days?
Yes, sir.
Anything abnormal in the conversations?
No.
Was did Lisa ever express to you any concern about someone that had a problem with her or anything like that?
No, sir. She had no enemies or
That you were aware of?
that I was aware of. No, everyone thought the world of her.
Was she excited about having gotten a credit card recently?
Yes, sir, she was.
Talk to you about that?
Yes, sir.
Where'd she keep it?
In her pocketbook. I don't know where because I never went through her pocketbook.
Did she have a driver's license?
Yes, sir.
Kept that in her pocketbook as well?
Yes, sir. I assume it was.
How did you learn about her her demise?
I got a phone call right before I went to work. In fact, I was on my way out to go to work that morning, and the phone rang, and I picked it up, and Jeannie Leon called and told me.
Who's that?
Jeannie Leon and Jerry Leon, that's his wife. They're friends of ours, and Jerry was the gentleman that she was with the first time that I ever met Lisa, that we went bowling.
And you heard what you were told, and it involved that I don't want to get into the conversation, but the subject was that she had died.
Yes, sir.
What'd you do?
Well, immediately I called her brother, and Michael, and he confirmed what was going on, and I kind of just, I don't know, I just kind of lost it and screamed and hit the wall and knocked a hole in the wall and started running through the house. I had a couple of friends that lived with me. They had divorced their wives and they needed a place to live, and so I started running through the house, and it was still fairly early in the morning, and I was screaming, get up, you know. And
Where did you go when you left the house?
I'm sorry, sir.
Where did you go when you left your home?
I got in my car and I drove like a maniac as fast as I could straight to the Cape Coral Police Department.
Did you encounter an officer there or officers?
Yes, sir, I did. I walked in and told the front desk who I was and asked to speak to someone. I had no idea who, just whoever they had that would know something that was going on.
Did they turn around and take a statement from you?
Yes, sir, they did not. They took me back and requested if it would be all right if they took blood and hair and tissue and things like that, and I agreed to that immediately. And they fingerprinted me and took hair and tissue samples just from several areas of my body. And then they took me to the hospital where they drew some blood.
Did you do all that voluntarily?
Absolutely.
Over the course of the investigation, and that's been a long time, did you stay involved in the investigation with the
Yes,
police?
sir, very much so.
Regular communication with them?
Yes, sir.
I'm frustrated at times when...
Extremely frustrated sometimes.
Did you assist financially or by doing certain things to help to try to figure out what had happened to Lisa and her...
Yes, sir, I did.
And Robin?
Yes, sir, I did.
For instance?
For instance, I spoke with private investigators. I would chase any lead that I could anywhere. I don't know, my heart was broken, you know, and I loved her very much. Still do.
Did you hear him there saying how his heart is still broke and he still loves Lisa's story? The babysitter watching little Robin Cornell. It's important to remember what this case is about. It's about those two people, the victims in this case, and then the other victims who are still alive, like that man on the witness stand, Charles Richards. I want to talk some more about this case. What might have been the motivation? Was it something sexual? I mean, we learned yesterday the very cruel way that these two people were found. Very evident that a sex assault had taken place with both of their bodies left for dead. Let me bring in my guest now in New York, criminal defense attorney, former prosecutor Marie Pereira, and retired deputy inspector for the NYPD, and author Corey Pegues. Great to have you both on the show. Good morning to you. Corey, I want to begin with you, please, tapping into your experience as an investigator, learning about that crime scene, how these victims were found. What does it say to you, please?
Well, good morning to both of you. First of all, yeah, definitely sexual assault was one of the mitigating factors in this case. But I want to speak about, the NYPD has a cold case squad. And for years, decades, I was a cop for a couple of decades. They bring closure to families. They never, ever forget. And this cold case squad's all over America. I was very happy to see that they got a defendant in this case, a perpetrator. This is really good for the family, and I hope that this is the person and they could connect the dot. But again, we talk about this all the time. You can't really run away from the DNA footprint. So this is going to be good for the family going forward, because they've been dealing with this pain for 30 years.
Oh, most definitely, most definitely. You see Charles Richards on the stand right now. We see him today saying to this jury how he's still in pain. He still loves her. He lost the love of his life on that dreadful day, and then to have to relive it now, it's got to be really awful for these victims. Marie Pereira, would you speak to some of the challenges for both sides on this one? When it's a great thing when cold cases get solved, as we know, but tough to litigate cases like this, for both sides of the courtroom. Would you speak about that, please?
It's difficult because once you have DNA that's over a possible attack, that the integrity of the DNA being tested was not in good shape, so to speak. Also, you have witnesses whose memory who may not be available. But in this case, I think so far they're doing a very good job, because prosecution is doing exactly what you always say, preemptively striking any type of defense like it wasn't me, because he's calling people who knew her, who are really humanizing both her and the little girl, okay? And they're shutting down any possibility of, okay, I didn't do it.
You're right, Marie, exactly. Thank you for that. And that's what we're seeing right now with Charles Richards is a preemptive strike, because they're laying out for the jury how he gave all of the DNA sampling right there and was ruled out very quickly as any kind of suspect. You know, not that he ever was a suspect, but when you have a case like this, of course, you're going to look at the people closest to the victims. And so he was glad to turn over all of that to be ruled out and then to participate in the investigation. He said he was trying to learn about any leads, anything, any information he could gather. Stand by, my friends. We're going to squeeze in a break. Thank you for being with us here on Court TV Live. We'll go back to Florida together right after this.
I started hearing these stories about murder and stuff.
I'm about to be the biggest drug dealer that you can become.
Oh my God, are they starting a war with me or what?
I'm not gonna lie, it felt good to be a gangster.
She just points the gun at my face.
Boom, 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 boom.
Just shoots me.
We knew that what we were doing had consequences, but we just didn't care.
Vice on Court TV, tonight at 7/6 Central, only on Court TV.
Thanks for staying with us. Let's go back to Florida together. Now we're watching the Babysitter cold case trial. On the stand right now is the guy who was the boyfriend of one of the victims at the time. Victim Lisa Story, the babysitter. This gentleman's name is Charles Richards. Let's watch.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Just briefly. Did you help Lisa move?
No, sir, I did not. I offered. She said that she had it taken care of, that she'd packed up some boxes and prior, and she really just was going to load them in her car and take them over.
She was. What about furniture?
She didn't have any furniture to move, sir. When she lived over at Tarpon Street Pier, it was a furnished dwelling, and then she moved to Cape Coral and lived with a radiologist, and of course his home was furnished.
So really all she had to move was
personal items and clothing. Yes, sir.
And kitchen items and stuff like that.
Yes, sir. Limited kitchen items.
How much clothing did she have?
Not that much, I don't think, sir.
What about personal items?
She had personal items, you know, typical female personal items, you know, jewelry and etc. You know, women's clothing, shoes. And
what about decorative pictures, whatever?
She had some photographs, but not an abundance, you know, overabundance of them.
And you didn't see any of that before it was moved to Miss Cornell's?
No, sir, I did not.
You said that you had been someplace with Miss Story, and you had been drinking some beers? I don't know if it was at her house or you had been out drinking or...
I said that we had been, we stayed home on the weekend and watched some basketball.
Okay.
Prior to her death, that weekend.
That was that weekend?
It was the weekend prior to her death, yes, sir.
Okay. Had you been to Miss Cornell's residence?
No, sir.
Did you ever go there?
Maybe 7 or 8 years later, when Mr. Charlie Garrett was in charge of the investigation.
No, sir. I meant prior to the...
No, sir. I didn't even know where it was at, and I never even asked until, like I said, several years later, I was up here talking to Mr. Garrett, the Cape Coral Police Department, and I asked him where it was located. I just wanted to ride by and look.
So you didn't, you weren't there the night of the murders?
No, sir.
And so you would not know whose beers were on the bedside table?
No, sir, I would not.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Judge, can we have a minute?
Sir?
I'm sorry, sir, I do have a couple more questions. You were dating for how long?
From February of '86 until her demise, the 10th of May of 1990.
Just over 4 years.
Yes, sir.
Did you ever live together?
I would not necessarily live together. I'd go over and spend extended periods of time, and she would do the same at my house.
But that was on the weekends?
On the weekends and during the week also, sir.
Okay.
But we both maintained separate residences.
How come?
I don't know, really don't have an answer.
Okay. You said that you separated for about a month in 1989?
Yes, sir.
Why was that, sir?
We got into some kind of insane argument about the environment, and where Coconut Point Mall is now, the farmer that had that land back then had stripped all the mangroves off of it, and so that he could develop it, and he'd tried for years to get a permit to do it, and of course they wouldn't give him one, so he just came in there and stripped it. And I said something about that, and Lisa didn't like it, and she was environmentally conscious, and so it led to a typical boyfriend, girlfriend insanity that escalates over nothing, and so we decided we'd just pull away from each other for a little while.
Okay. And you did that, and you decided to get back together?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, and there we have it. This witness's testimony has concluded.